It's the Growler with PD&Jay. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler bad to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler podcast.
All right, welcome to another episode of The Growler. I am your host, Paul Daner Jr. I feel like I could pull off Paul for an episode. And of course, I'm here with Jay Morrison as always. Paul is obviously off this week because of his extreme reverence for the holiday of Thanksgiving. He cannot be asked to record any shows during this week. So we're stepping in, doing a combo PD&Jay / Who Dey Light today.
I imagine Paul at 12:01 the night of Thanksgiving, waking up the family and saying, okay, now we can sing Christmas carols. You got to get Thanksgiving out of the way. Maybe they do it after Thanksgiving dinner, but you're right. He is maybe the biggest Thanksgiving fan I know.
I know it's a little over the top, I think, at this point. He's ranted about it for 2 straight weeks on our show. And, let people have the fun of Christmas. There's not any good Thanksgiving songs really or decorations. So if people want to get festive, there were Christmas lights up in my neighborhood last night when we drove home. That was fun to see. I enjoyed it. Mine aren't up, but I still appreciate those. I'm not going to go banging on their doors telling them they're wrong.
We were going to do ours today, and now there's like 20-mile-per-hour winds out there, so I don't think that's going to happen.
It is a windy day in Cincinnati. We this is going to be a fun show. We've got a lot of different things to get to. We're going to hit all the important points here. Obviously, some big news this week. Joe Burrow is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals again, which is something a lot of us expected, but is still exciting nonetheless. Gives a little bit more interest in this game on Thursday. And I guess we should, because it is the top of the show, plug one of our big sponsors, BetMGM. Of course, our next live show is December 14th. That's the Ravens game. That's our Christmas show, Jay. Are you fired up for that?
Santa Paul. We're going to give away a lot of things.
Yeah, and I mean it's not a huge place. This is what I like to stress to people too. It's a fun spot. So if you're watching games this holiday weekend, head down to Tom's Watch Bar / BetMGM. They always have some good promos running, and there's a million TVs in there. Fun spot to watch sports, but it's not like a huge spot. So if you come to our show, there's a good chance you're walking out with a prize on December 14th. That's what I like to emphasize to people. It's usually a pretty fun hang anyway. But that's the show to come to if you want to walk away with something. Including
ice cream, Grater's ice cream. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff there that you can walk away with. And people have all of our shows, not just the Christmas show. People win stuff, and we're going to have even more prizes for the Christmas show.
All right. So, we've got a lot to get to today. We've got our RPB. We've got, get into the game stuff and all of that kind of business. And we'll get to some Who Dey Light stuff. We have a few questions we're going to take towards the back half of the show. We'll do some dad lives. So we're going to kind of hit all the highlights from these different shows. But we got to start it off with the news. What's the big news of this week, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's Joe Burrow is back. It seemed like that this was going to be the game, and then it seemed like it was going to be the Buffalo game, and then it seemed like it was going to be last week against the Patriots, and it has landed here on Thursday night, on Thanksgiving night against the Ravens. And, Bengals go into that game with a 7-game winning streak. And people might be saying, what are you talking about? They're 3-8. And yes, the Bengals are 3-8. And because of that, there's a sizable portion of the fan base that doesn't think Joe Burrow should come back, that he should not risk injury this year. It's a 1% chance to make the playoffs. He does have an injury history. And that was something he was asked about specifically in yesterday's news conference. What would he say to people that don't want to see him come back and play this season?
You understand?
Yes, I understand why people feel that way, but if you look at it from my perspective, I'm a football player, and if I get hurt, I'm going to go through the rehab process, and then I'm going to let everybody know when I feel like I can go out there and play. I don't really know what else to say about that. I'm not going to ever go to somebody and say, yeah, I'm healthy, but I don't think I should go out there and play. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not going to live my life and play this game scared of something happening. Like, yeah, something's going to happen. It's football. Guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to get concussions. You're going to break bones, tear ligaments. It's a physical, intense game. That's part of this. And, yeah, I've had injuries. There's not a lot I can do about that. I work really hard to have that not happen, but what I can do is when it does happen, I can control how I'm attacking my rehab and attacking practice and doing everything in my power to get back as quickly as possible. That's what I did.
And I mean, football players are just built different. There's I think there have been guys in the past that have kind of made business decisions and not played when injuries have been kind of lingering, when the team hasn't been good. But I think most players agree with Joe Burrow in that stance. I think a lot of people maybe understand that and would put it on the organization or the coaching staff to step in and say, we're going to do what's best for the team, not what you want. But I get it. This organization is always going to try to win games. As long as there's a 1% chance. I mean, nobody thought they had a chance last year, and they reeled off 5 in a row, and they came pretty close to making the playoffs. And, you know, I said it flippantly, but they do have a 7-game winning streak with Joe Burrow at quarterback. And they've put these runs, not just last year. There have been a lot of years when this, for whatever reason, part of it not playing in the preseason, and they build up to it, but they play really well in November and December. And as long as there's a chance that they can make something of this season, they're going to put Burrow in there, and they're going to take their chances. Now, maybe if they lose this week and they're mathematically eliminated, they start rethinking that a little bit, but I don't think so. I think as long as he's healthy, as long as he's able to play, they're going to have him at quarterback.
I mean, logistically, what does that look like if they do lose? I mean, you can't just say we're giving up on the season.
Right.
Do they just try and say that his injury flared up or come up with some convenient thing? Like I feel like that would be tough for them to navigate when you have a franchise player that does want to be on the field like that and has been vocal about it.
Yeah, and it's not like you have a 100% healthy backup either, because I mean, Joe Flacco's still dealing with the shoulder. So you're right. It would be hard outside of saying the injury got worse or came back too soon, something along those lines. It is there's a lot of moves. It's kind of what we're seeing on defense, where Zach has been reluctant to replace some of the guys that have struggled. There's some moves you just can't go back from, and this would be one. You put him in as the starter, and until he's not able to play, you kind of have to ride it out through the end of the season.
And there was a little bit of talk, a little bit of, rumors swirling that he might play last week on Sunday. And it seemed to be some of the feeling among some of the people covering the team. I know Paul felt like it was likely that Joe would play on Sunday. Were you surprised that Zach Taylor didn't have him playing in that game, even though Joe wanted to play? Did that surprise you at all?
Yeah, it did a little. Because people everywhere I went, people were asking, and I started at 50-50, and then I went 51-49 he's playing, and then I got to 60-40 he's playing. But Zach saw something on Friday that gave him pause. It really did feel like momentum was building for it. And, whether it was conversations with Joe or seeing the way he was operating, they didn't limit him in practice on Friday because of the injury. He was limited because they needed to get Flacco reps. They were still kind of on the fence. And, it seemed even when we talked to Zach on Friday that his mind wasn't made up. So there was just something there that gave him pause. And, they could have used him. They probably win that New England game if he plays. Not that Flacco was brutal, but he did throw a pretty bad pick six. I don't think Joe Burrow throws that pick six, even in his first game back after not playing in 8 weeks.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of the question I have for you too, is like, which Joe Burrow do you think that we're going to see? Is it going to be like third game of the season Joe Burrow, a little bit still working off that rust, or do you think we'll see a little bit more of November Joe? I know he's looked good in practice, but I can't read a whole lot from that. What's your gut say on that? Yeah,
I think it's going to be somewhere in between. The times he's struggled early in seasons, he's come off of these injuries that whether it was the appendectomy or coming back from the calf, that really caused him to miss a ton of practice time in training camp. And those are valuable reps. And he had a full training camp this time, and he had a game and a half. So yeah, he's had a layoff. There might be a little bit of rust, but I don't think we're going to see him struggle the way he has at the beginning of the last couple seasons. But I also don't think we're going to see 2024 December, November Joe Burrow where they were arguably the best offense in the league. It's gonna be, and plus let's not forget that this Ravens defense is playing really well right now too. So there's gonna be an easing in period, but I don't think it's gonna take very long for him to ramp up and start looking like prime Joe Burrow in December.
I mean, you talk about him winning 7 starts in a row. I think the one stat here that might give me a little bit of pause is just the fact that T. Higgins isn't going to be playing in this game. And how many of those 7 wins came with that trio doing the coin toss every game of Joe and Jamal? Yeah. And like, maybe that's the magic. There's just some sort of magic connected to that coin toss grouping that when you get the 3 of them together, they just can't lose anymore. Maybe it comes down to the coin toss.
Yeah, or I mean, the thing to think about too, though, is they've played a lot of games without T. Higgins. He's had hamstring injuries, he's had soft tissue stuff, and he's missed games before. You know, they had one stretch without Jamar where he had the hip in 2022, I believe. But they've had these periods that they've had to go through without T, and so they're a little more accustomed to that. And they've got Gesicki back. The timing on that was kind of perfect. Where it's not ideal. You want both of those guys. You want Jamar and T out there, but not having T it hurts. He's been terrific, but I think they've created a lot of game plans. They've seen how teams attack them without T, so that would be a easier thing to navigate than say not having Jamar, which was the case last week.
It will be nice to see Jamar Chase back on the field. Hopefully he gets another 23 targets, but he spoke with the media this week as well, right?
Yeah, he did. He issued the apology on Monday, knowing that he was going to sit at the podium on Tuesday, and that's what pretty much dominated the press conference was asking him about the incident, about the apology. Here's some of the key stuff he had to say about that.
Just giving a moment to apologize to everybody. I just letting myself get out of control, out of character, basically messing over my name, organization, NFL, and everybody else associated with me. That's pretty much it, though.
Did you know in the moment that it happened? What kind of happened during the course of that play that led to you maybe going over the line? You thought?
I ain't gonna get all into detail and all that, but I know, of course.
I mean, one question that people did have is that you didn't mention Ramsey specifically by name in the apology. Was there any reason for that? Have you reached out to him? Has there been any conversations with Jalen about what happened?
No, we don't have no conversations and nothing like that. I ain't got no way to get in contact with him. So,
what have you thought about being away from the facility over these last 7 days and kind of processing everything that's happened this season you've had up until this point? What have you thought about in the time away that you had?
Shit. I had so much time. I was bored. I mean, I didn't know what to. Thinking about everything at that time, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't really one thing I'm thinking about. I'm just trying to watch the game, just worry about my, what I can't control at the end of the day. That's what I'm worrying about for real.
How hard was Sunday having to watch?
It wasn't hard watching the game at the end of the day. It was just, I guess I could finally say I know how Cincinnati fans feel watching the game. It was a little nerve-wracking for me. Usually when I'm in the game, it's not nerve-wracking, but watching it was for me, yeah.
Do you worry this is something that might follow you for a long time?
What might?
The suspension, what led to it?
No, I could care less for real, no.
Is there something you want to prove this week, or is it going to take longer to prove that that's not you? Do you go out there with a different...
at the end of the day, I don't really have nothing to prove of who I am. I mean, either you like me or you don't. I could care less. I'm still going to go for it at the end of the day. I got kids. I got people to take care of, so I could really care less. So I'm going out there, be the same player I am, you know what I'm saying, and play football. At the end of the day, ain't nobody going to stop me from who I am.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, it wasn't, he didn't seem as contrite as maybe you would have hoped to see, but he was defiant. He talked about Jalen Ramsey. He said there's some things that crossed the line, and he didn't want to get in and he didn't want to make it sound like he was justifying what he did, because there's really no way to justify spitting on somebody, but he made it clear that Jalen Ramsey went over a line And, I asked him, I said, was it verbal or physical? And he didn't want to answer that part of it. But we've seen this before. That's what Jalen Ramsey does. He gets in people's heads. He did it to AJ Green, one of the most mild-mannered guys that there is. And that was another thing I had asked him is, do you worry that other teams are going to start trying to bait you into something like that? And he said that's always been the case. That's something that guys do every single week. So he's not worried about it. But I wonder, is he going to come out, kind of on fire and ready to prove something? He's had some really good games against Baltimore in the past. And you don't want to see this incident dampen his competitive fire. And I don't think we will. If anything, I think it's going to be ramped up.
I mean, it's unfortunate. The whole thing's unfortunate because he had taken on more of a leadership role this season and kind of led by example a lot, especially with Joe being out. So that was kind of a nice little development to the Jamar Chase story this season. Obviously takes a little bit of a setback, but you pointed out the Jalen Ramsey thing. I mean, that's kind of the consistent factor in so many of these incidents. Like, he's had that with other guys. It didn't follow AJ Green around forever that he had that one blow up with him. I do think that, he can put this behind him, but teams will be trying to recreate that and bait him into stuff, probably even more than they were before. Do you think that having Joe Burrow back on the field with him will help calm him down a little bit in that respect too, and be a little bit more of a steadying influence?
I don't know. I mean, I go back to last year when Jamar got fined for verbally abusing an official, and Joe Burrow was trying to calm him down in the moment and push him away, and Jamar just kept going at the official, and it cost him a lot of money. But Jamar said he didn't apologize to Jalen because he didn't have a way to get a hold of him. I imagine there's some other DBs in the league that are getting a hold of Jalen. And what did you say to get under his skin? Because it feels like it went beyond football, and it was probably personal to some degree. And you wonder. I mean, is that going to be a template to try to rattle that guy? Because if you can get him to do something that takes him out of the game mentally or literally by an ejection, that's a big step forward to beating this offense.
I mean, yeah, because honestly, there are very few guys that can stay with him physically. Like, your only hope is to trying to get into his head and get him off his own game, because just playing him straight up is not going to work out well for many people in this league, especially for Jalen Ramsey. Not anymore, at least.
Yeah, and Jalen's been fined a bunch in his career. This is not new for him, like as we've said. And I do think Jamar has learned from this, and I do think he is sorry it happened, but it just didn't seem like he was over the top contrite. And maybe that's because he put the statement out Monday, and then this kind of felt repetitive for him in the news conference.
Yeah, and it did feel like he still has some lingering feelings about Jalen Ramsey. It will be interesting to see the next time that they play each other, how that kind of unfolds. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of eyes on both of them for that one, so I don't imagine it'll get recreated.
Hopefully they're mic'd up.
Yeah, that would be good. It would be a good time. Injury situation. What is the current injury situation?
Yeah, so we mentioned it. T is out. Zach mentioned that. It's just a concussion.
Yeah.
It's tough to come back the next game anyhow, but once a Thursday, it's kind of it's a non-starter. So the same goes for Taj Brooks, who was in the backup role to Chase Brown at running back. But the Bengals, it looks like they're getting Samaje Perine back. I would expect to have him back. And he and Chase Brown really had a good thing going there. And Chase Brown is, he's got a chance to be the first player in Bengals history to have 100 scrimmage yards or more in 6 straight games. It's kind of crazy to think that's never happened before, but the record is 5, and he's done it twice now. He had a 5-game streak last year. He's got another 5-game streak this year. So, I think Samaje will take some away from care, touches away from him, but maybe it's addition by subtraction, because you keep Chase a little fresher. He was really carrying the load the last few weeks. They weren't playing Taj a lot. Taj actually suffered the concussion on a kickoff. So Trey Hendrickson out as well. Again, another game he's going to miss with the hip/back injury. Lesser degree, Marco Wilson, backup cornerback. He's got a hammy. He's likely out. He hasn't practiced all week. And then we'll see on Cam Sample. He's got an oblique injury. They could use a little extra juice in the pass rush. Not that he brings a lot of juice, but he does help with the rotation and maybe lets Joseph Osai and Miles Murphy stay a little fresher in the fourth quarter. He's been limited both days this week, so we'll see if he and I should say too that though they did not practice Monday. Monday was an estimated practice report. What they would have been listed as had they practiced, and then they did a night practice last night, a light one. You really can't do too much on these short weeks. Just got to kind of, it's more about getting your body right and getting ready to play than it is the on-field X's and O's hard practices.
It'll be nice to see Samaje Perine back on the field.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been one nice development this season is, they went with the rookie approach at those guard positions, similar to what they did with linebacker on defense, and it didn't go great. We've talked a lot about the linebackers this season, but the offensive line has been okay, maybe not perfect lately, but they are running the ball well. Do you think that with Burrow back, that running game is going to look the same that it's looked the last few weeks?
Yeah, I do. I think I would give even more credit to this offensive line. I think they really have kind of settled in, and they've realized they can run the ball. And Dalton Reisner steps in there last week for Jalen Rivers, who has an injury, and the running game has just really looked good. And that's a best friend for a quarterback, any quarterback, but especially a quarterback coming back off of an injury and not just getting the running game going, but Samaje Perine is a really good pass blocking running back. And Chase Brown has gotten good at it, but Perine is really solid at that. So, and he'll be in there on a lot of third downs, I think. And so all of that is going to help, just give some extra comfort to Burrow and the offense as a whole.
All right. Are you ready for a run, pass, or boot?
I am. Let's do it.
All right. Of course, by now you know about Josh with Camargo Insurance, a fellow listener for a decade plus, and your judge and jury this season for Run, Pass, or Boot. If you have an RPB you want us to read, send your suggestions to Josh at CamargoInsurance.com. When you work with Josh at Camargo on your insurance, it's a true concierge experience. No fluff, no runaround, just real one-on-one help from somebody who gets it. Josh isn't your average agent. He's a certified insurance and risk professional who helps business owners protect what they've built and plan for what's next. If you own a small business, reach out to Josh to assure peace of mind you have the best coverage available. Josh works with some of the best carriers in the industry so he can find the perfect coverage for your home, auto, business, or life insurance needs. His mission is to empower you to live your best life with confidence, knowing your coverage actually makes sense. And Josh is such a good dude. He loves giving back to the Growl Pals too. He's giving away 2 tickets to the Bengals-Ravens game. All you have to do is request the free, no obligation quote. No policy purchase is necessary to enter or win. Then you're entered for a chance to win some seats and also make sure your coverage actually makes sense. A link to enter is found in the episode notes and the QR code on YouTube. So if you're ready for insurance, it's simple, personal, and handled by somebody who's a trusted Growl Pal. Reach out to Josh at Camargo Insurance. And, well, listen, I also wanted to say this. This is the last week, right, for the giveaway. So,
Yeah.
If you don't hesitate, reach out to Josh. Do it, right away. As soon as you hear this, just pause this episode and send Josh that email. Get that thing rolling so you can get entered to win the tickets, which will get drawn next week.
I mean, that could be a really fun game. If they find a way to win Thursday night and then go to Buffalo, the Bills look fallible.
They do.
They really got exposed. That's a great Houston defense that lit them up on Monday night last week, or was that Thursday? That was Thursday night's game.
Yeah.
But if Joe Burrow, if he can keep this winning streak going and they somehow find a way to win these next 2 games, that game where you have a chance to win free tickets to could be really, really interesting because you find a way to sweep the Ravens and all of a sudden you're 1 game behind them. Who knows? I still don't think Pittsburgh's for real. All of a sudden this thing starts crystallizing and you're like, wow, there is that 1% chance is going to grow exponentially.
Yeah. And it's our Christmas show down there. So you can win free tickets and come see us, get some prizes. It would be a great day. So hit up Josh about that. All right. Are you ready for the run, pass, or boot? Here we go. Ravens themed. Which will be longer? Derrick Henry's best run, Lamar Jackson's best pass, or Evan McPherson's best field goal? How do you run, pass, or boot those? That's a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, you almost have to lean field goal because, an average field goal is in the 40s and you don't see a lot of 40-yard runs even passes. Against this Bengals defense, you do. So it kind of Lamar hasn't looked great the last few weeks, but there's always the chance a slant and a missed tackle could turn into a 10 play, could turn into a 60, 70, 80-yard run. I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. I think he bust one. It feels like he's due. He's had some good games, but he hasn't really busted a long one in a while. And I'm not sold. The Bengals defense played a lot better last week, and then 3 missed tackles. That was a season low. I don't know that they've turned the corner. I think going against this defense or this offense could re-expose them. So I'm gonna run with a Derrick Henry run. I'll pass on an Evan McPherson field goal, and I'll boot a Lamar Jackson pass. I think he has some 20-yarders in there, but I don't think he's going to have any crazy long ones against this defense.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that last one with Lamar just being the boot option, just because he has been banged up and I'm not quite sure what to expect. And like you said, there is always that threat that, Geno Stone misses a tackle in the open field and something that looks routine ends up being a nightmare highlight the other way. I'm going to flip you though. And I'm going to say, I'm going to run with the Evan McPherson field goal just because he's, shown he's got that leg to really pull off the 50-yarder or the 60-yarder.
60, yeah.
I thought, like, if you had asked me this question last week, I probably would have ran with the Derrick Henry run, just given what we've seen with the missed tackles on this defense. But they were better last week. I thought the Patriots were going to break one off. They didn't have any crazy long runs, and I thought that was more likely in that game. So I'm going to pass with Derrick Henry's run on that one.
Yeah, Trayvon Henderson, terrific explosive running back. His long against the Bengals defense was 9 yards. Yeah, they still struggled to cover the tight ends, but they did a much better job against the run.
Yeah, and again, I could also see a scenario where Derrick Henry just runs through a couple of our defenders, and it's not the greatest tackling exhibition as Jordan Battle falls down or Geno Stone just opts not to be involved with the play. Who knows? But that'll be an interesting one to watch. All right, let's move on to some game stuff. Thanksgiving against the Ravens. It's exciting to see. Do you think, Jay, that was a big thing for Joe Burrow to get back for this game specifically?
Yeah, it was. He talked about it a couple of years ago, how much he wanted to play on a holiday when they opened his practice window. I specifically asked him if it would be meaningful if this is the game he comes back for, given his injury history there in Baltimore. That's where the wrist happened, and he said it would be very meaningful. And he kind of expanded on that yesterday about why it means so much for him to play in this game on Thanksgiving.
Number one, it's a division game. I got a lot of respect for the people on the opposite side of the ball, but when you play people twice a year, it's you get tired of them, you don't like them. It's a division rivalry. You got respect for them, but it's intense out there. It's something I wanted to be out there for. Playing on Thanksgiving is something I've always wanted to do that I've pushed for in the past, and the NFL gave it to us, and then, the injury happened, and thought I wasn't going to be able to play, and then as we got closer, I, felt like it was a real possibility, so that's exciting to me, and it's a national stage to go out and prove yourself again after not playing for several weeks, and every opportunity that you get to go and prove all the hard work that you've put in, the type of player you are, is something that I try to take advantage of.
What's so meaningful about that day specifically? Why have you always wanted to play on this day?
I think just like a lot of kids, you grow up going through Thanksgiving, you have your meals with your family, and then you go and sit on the couch, and typically there's not a lot on, except football. Back in the day, it was Lions and somebody. You go watch Matthew Stafford throw for 300, 400 some yards with Calvin Johnson and probably lose the game, but it was fun to watch. Those are memories that you have, and so I kind of always wanted to be the person out there.
You've done some really cool things in your career. Are you able to just appreciate how cool it is to come back from a major injury on a primetime Thanksgiving game? Is that particularly exciting for you?
Yeah, I think obviously the winning and the division championships that we've won are the most exciting things that we've done. But whenever you have an opportunity like this against a divisional opponent that's won 5 straight, and you're playing on a Thursday night in front of the world, that's an exciting opportunity.
So yeah, it's all set up for him. We'll set up the game here. It obviously, you guys know it's Bengals versus Ravens. It's 8:30 p.m. on NBC. The announcers are going to be Mike Tirico, Jason Garrett, and Melissa Stark. Maybe this is NBC's gift. I know Bengal fans love to hate Chris Collinsworth. He doesn't work on Thanksgiving. I guess when you get to a certain status, you get to call those shots. So it will be Jason Garrett, the former Cowboys head coach. That'll be doing the color with Mike Tirico. Mike Tirico's terrific. Ravens 6-5, tied with the Steelers for first place in the AFC North, but they are the leader, the division leader right now based on tiebreakers. If the season ended today, they would be the 4 seed, and we would have a Harbaugh versus Harbaugh playoff matchup because the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh are the 5 seed currently. Ravens have won 5 in a row. They're 3-3 at home this year, but this is an amazing stat. They are 22-4 in home night games under John Harbaugh. That's an 846 winning percentage, by far the best in the league. Green Bay is second, 761 winning percentage. They're 35-11 in home night games. BetMGM line, Ravens -7. The over-under is 51.5. The weather, it's going to be 32 degrees at kickoff. No chance of precipitation. 10-mile-per-hour winds. There's a gale warning in Baltimore today, so it's still going to be breezy, but it's not going to be anything that's maybe going to affect kicks or knock down passes, anything like that. The uniform, white pants, white jersey, black stripes, black socks. It is their most common uniform. They're 11-7 wearing that uniform combination. It's also their streakiest. They're on a current 3-game winning streak with that uniform. Before that, it was a 6-game losing streak in the white, black combo. And before that, it was a 6-game winning streak. So we'll see if they can keep the 3-game streak going. Last week, the Ravens beat the Jets 23-10 at home for their 5th straight win. The last time these two teams met was Ravens 35, Bengals 34, when the Bengals went for the 2-point conversion at the end of the game to try to win it. That was week 10 last year. Baltimore has won 4 in a row in this series. The record, they won 6 in a row against the Bengals from 98 to 2000.
And do you have a referee report for this?
Yeah, I do. Craig Rolstad. It's funny because I thought, they like to give villain Ron Torbert the big games. He's actually doing a Thanksgiving game. He's doing the 1:00 game, the Lions game. So the Bengals got lucky there. They just dodged him. Craig Rolstad has been a referee for a long time in this league, 2014. So he's a double-digit white hat. Bengals are 6-4 with him as the referee. The Ravens are 6-2 with Rolstad as the referee. The last game that Craig Rolstad worked, a Bengals game, was last year at Tennessee, and the Bengals won that game, but they were called for 14 penalties and 113 yards. The 14 penalties are the most of the Zach Taylor era and the most in franchise history going back to 2005. Kind of out of character. Craig Rolstad typically is at the bottom of the league. He's currently 12th out of the 17 crews in penalties per game, at 12 per game. So hopefully it's more along those lines, and it's not that game last year. It wasn't just Bengals. Bengals 14 penalties, Titans 12. Hopefully we're not getting 26 penalties Thursday night.
And just a quick Growler bet reset from last week. We didn't have a winner, right? Or we had a tie.
Yeah, we had a tie. 5 people. The Growler bet was when will the Patriots get their 27th point, because the Bengals had a chance to set an NFL record for most consecutive games giving up 27, and they came up short, 1 point short. They only scored 26. Somehow 5 of you had faith that the Bengals would not set the NFL record, and said that the Patriots would not even get to 27 points. So the tiebreaker for you guys, just you 5, and Paul graded them, and we don't have the names. I'm sorry. Maybe we'll come up with that next week when we break this tie. But the tiebreaker for you 5 is going to be, when will the Ravens get their 26th point? on Thursday night. That's time of game, and it's time of the snap, not time showing on the clock after the points have been scored. So send that in, send as your tiebreaker for last week. And then for this week, the Growler bet is going to be Mark Andrews receiving yards. And this is kind of amazing that the Bengals, we talked about, I referenced it a little bit earlier, they really struggled against tight ends this year. Hunter Henry got him last week for a big game, had the touchdown, a lot of yards. The Bengals this year have given up 77 receptions to tight ends. That leads the league. They've given up 971 yards to tight ends. That leads the league by a mile. The next closest is the Carolina Panthers, 172 yards behind that at 799.
Jeez.
And Bengals have given up 13 touchdowns to tight ends this year. That's almost double the next closest. There are 6 teams tied for second, giving up 7 touchdowns. It's just, and this is not a one-off. This is the last 3 years. They have been in the top 2 in all those categories against tight ends. So a real chance for Mark Andrews to do some damage on Thursday night. That will be the Growler bet, is how many receiving yards will Mark Andrews have against the Bengals?
Yeah, so send those to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. That is scary. I didn't like hearing all of those numbers that you've pulled out. It does encourage me to hit those Mark Andrews props on BetMGM. Maybe make a little bit of extra holiday spending cash if the defense is going to be that bad covering tight ends.
I bet MGM is aware of that trend. They have probably inflated his over-under for this game.
Right, yeah. When you go to bet that, whenever you hear this and you pull up your BetMGM app and you see the over-under for Andrews receiving yards is up to like 175, you'll know that the money is coming in against that Bengals defense. Do you have any Thanksgiving stats? I
do. This is the Bengals' second game on Thanksgiving, and I was curious, well, what could we get a record? That Joe Burrow could set a franchise record with 8 straight wins by a starting quarterback. Chase Brown, I mentioned his record, that if he gets 100 scrimmage yards, that'll be 6 in a row, first time in franchise history. Evan McPherson last week with a 63-yard field goal was a franchise record. So I started looking at what are the best performances on Thanksgiving Day. And we'll start with passing. 300 passing yard games. Matt Stafford, Joe Burrow referenced it. He has 4 300 passing yard games on Thanksgiving. Dak is second. Dak Prescott has 3. He could maybe tie Stafford this week. The record, Troy Aikman with 455 yards in 1998 against the Vikings. What about rushing yards? The record for rushing yards on a Thanksgiving Day game, O.J. Simpson, 273 in 1976 against the Detroit Lions. Probably won't surprise you. It's always been Cowboys Lions on Thanksgiving. Emmitt Smith had 8 100-yard games on Thanksgiving Day. Barry Sanders had 4. Interesting that Walter Payton is next on the list with 3, and he only played 4 Thanksgiving Day games in his career, and 3 of them he went over 100. And then if we go to receiving yards, Andre Johnson of the Houston Texans had 188 in 2012 versus the Lions. Given what Jamar Chase has done against the Ravens in the past, that could be in play. I could see a game where maybe he gets close to that, especially with T out. Burrow's just going to be feeding him as much as possible. So the record for most 100-yard receiving games is not the guy that Joe Burrow mentioned in Calvin Johnson. He's tied for second with 3, but Michael Irvin has the most with 4 100 receiving yard games. And then, we love these obscure teams and names from history. We've got one here. It's not just Calvin Johnson. There's 4 guys tied for second with 300-yard receiving games. I had never heard of this guy before, but a guy named Cloyce Fox had 3.
That sounds made up.
300-yard receiving games. He played end/halfback for the Lions from 1949 to 1954, except for 1951 when he left for military service to fight in the Korean War. And then he came back from that and started going for 100 yards again on Thanksgiving Day. Really remarkable. And then if we're going to look at field goals, Graham Gano of the Giants had a 57-yarder in 2022 against the Dallas Cowboys. That is the longest field goal on Thanksgiving. And maybe Evan McPherson could top that.
Yeah, as long as those wins die down, that could play a role into it. So some fun Thanksgiving stats, which I don't know how you felt about that this season. I know you've had some downer stats because this team has not played well, and you've picked up for years. I guess people have called Paul Downer Jr. when he gets into that mode.
Yeah.
You picked up the Jay Morbidson nickname this season. How are you feeling about that? As that's popped up with some Growl pals on some of these sadder stats.
Yeah, I mean, I like the nickname. I think it's really good. I everybody knows I love stats, and if the team you cover is really, really good or really, really bad, it's going to be a kind of a Super Bowl type season for stats, and that has been the case. These, I'm not just picking on the Bengals. These stats are real, and you don't have to dig too hard to find out that they are among the worst in the league. And the one that's still in play is they have never, no team has ever finished last in rushing yards allowed per game, passing yards allowed per game, and points allowed per game. The Bengals went into last week last in 2 of those 3 categories. They were next to last in passing yards per game. They actually moved into last. They passed the Steelers, so they are now last in passing yards. But because they were so good against the run, they are now 31st in run defense. So it's there. If this defense can turn the corner like they did against New England, they won't be in danger of setting that record. But if it keeps looking like it's looked before that New England game, then it's more history that could be set, and that would be very, very morbid.
Yeah, you'll go full Morbidson at that point. But I like those stats overall. Some good, fun Thanksgiving stats. O.J. Simpson's performance on Thanksgiving, I'm pretty sure that's what most people remember him for. I don't know if there was anything else notable about him. Going into this specific game, let's talk some predictions. What are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I think it's too much to ask. Baltimore's history at home in these games, it's an amazing, if you ever get a chance to go there for a night game, it is just an amazing production. It is really cool to see. Burrow, there's going to be some rust. I think, he's going to play well, but I don't think it's going to be peak Joe Burrow. I think it's too much to ask. And the Bengals have played the Ravens really close. It's a 4-game losing streak, but those games have all been close. And you think about it, last year, everybody talks about the Patriots loss in week 1 is what cost them the playoff. Really, it was the loss to the Ravens. They lose on a dropped field goal snap and then a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. Either one of those goes the other way, they're probably in the playoffs. So I do expect it to be close, but I do think Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, going to be too much for this Bengals defense. I'm not convinced that they fully turned the corner. It's not a light switch kind of league. You just don't go from awful to better overnight. There's a process, and there's a 1 step forward, 2 step back kind of process. And I do expect this to be a couple steps back. So I'm gonna go Ravens 31, Bengals 24.
You know what? I keep coming back to that 7 points. It does feel like a lot of points for what we've seen Baltimore do lately, and just considering this is going to be a big game. I don't know how rusty Joe Burrow is going to be, but if Joe just plays a lot to Jamar and Gesicki, I mean, I do like the Bengals with the points in this situation. And just because I've got to be more of the homer, I'm going to go with the Bengals 27-24 with the big upset.
Wow.
I wouldn't bet the money line in this probably. I would probably bet the 7 points. Take that at least. Now, Paul doesn't have a prediction. He did, but if he was here, I think he'd probably not predict a score. He would just predict Myles Murphy to get 3 sacks. So just bet the over on Myles Murphy's sacks this weekend.
You said you wouldn't. You would maybe bet the 7. I would suggest. I don't want to lead people astray, but I'm just going to throw this number out here. The last 15 times the Bengals have been underdogs of 7 points or more on the road, they've covered 11 of them.
Wow.
11-4 against the spread when they're on the road and a 7-point dog or more. They're 2-2 outright in their last 4. They beat Houston as a big underdog in 2020. They beat the Jaguars on Monday Night Football in 2023 with Jake Browning. They lost both games this year. They've been road dogs of 7 points or more. That was at Denver and at Green Bay. But 2-2 outright, 11-4 against the spread. History suggests that maybe getting a hold of BetMGM and having a little fun, having a little something on the game might make it more fun.
Yeah, you'll have more money for your Black Friday shopping at that
there you
point
go.
if you hit that big. Since it is Thanksgiving, we do have a quick Growl Pal spotlight. I know that's a Who Dey Light segment we're dipping into here, but we had a Growl Pal reach out with a charity thing that his group does, his family foundation. This is from Scott. They do a giving tree, and he said, "Good afternoon, loves all the episodes." He has a long time event that his family foundation has done to help youth in poverty during Christmas. It's called the Teep Family Fund Giving Tree. They raise money to get these little trees together with hundreds of dollars of gift cards on them, and the trees get delivered through St. Vincent de Paul to families. Very cool thing that a Growl Pal is doing. So we'll throw that link on our social media if you want to send some money their way to give to some families in need this holiday season. It would be a cool thing to do. And we always love to hear it when our Growl Pals are doing cool stuff like that in the community, giving back to people. That's what the holidays are all about.
It really is. And I know some people might be struggling right now, but if you can afford to help with anything, it really is the season. I know it sounds kind of cliche because you talk about it every year, but it is really important to help out this time. It's help at all times, but this time of year, it's a great thing to do. And, I'm sure it's appreciated by anybody that receives that type of charity, gift, appreciation. It's
support. You can just throw
support
under the catch-all, and it's that time of year. But every gesture matters, even if it's something small as throwing a few bucks to this guy to help, have a bigger donation to people in need. It's fun seeing the players throwing out turkeys on Thanksgiving week to people in fundraisers, and I know the Joe Burrow Foundation gave away thousands of meals to kids that needed it across the country and stuff like that. So you kind of see all these stories from big to small, but each one of those makes a difference for sure. And we'll highlight all of our Growl Pal stories throughout the holiday season. If anyone else is working on cool stuff like that, just send an email to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com as we try and shine a spotlight on that. Jay, we did have a few questions. Do you want to take a couple questions from the Growl Pals here before we wrap up?
Yeah, sure.
All right. This first one's from Isaac. He says, we've got to rank the best performances by Bengals we let walk this offseason. Everybody seems to be getting better. Sheldon Rankins, Jermaine Pratt, Lou Anarumo, ? And he also says he can't help but think that letting Higgins sign an extension really prevented them from spending on the other side of the ball. Is that right? Or is it deeper than that? I feel like that's deeper than that. But
I disagree with that. I mean, you that was a lot of money you could have spent on, but they still had money.
Yes.
It wasn't the act of signing T. Higgins. It was the timing of signing T. They waited way too long to get Jamar and T done, and free agency passed them by. And if they had just been more proactive and got those done, they knew they wanted to get it done. Why haggle it out and let it? I mean, you don't know what the negotiations were. You don't know how far apart they were, but why let it get in the way of free agency? You get it done early. They could have signed a defensive tackle. They could have signed a safety. They could have signed a linebacker, somebody, multiple guys, maybe even that would have helped. I know they signed TJ Slayton, but you could have got a pass rushing defensive tackle. It was there. And that was the biggest misstep of the offseason, was just dragging out the T thing. It wasn't signing him. I mean, obviously, look how good this offense was, how Joe Flacco was able to come in and just kind of pick up, and this offense was still taking off. I mean, T and Jamar together are just dynamic, and you pair that with Joe Burrow or Joe Flacco, and you see what this offense can be. And the defense doesn't have to be great, but it still has some big holes, and those are holes that could have been addressed had they not waited so long, and then all the good ones are gone. And so that's where I'll disagree there. I don't disagree with signing T. I just disagree with the timing of it.
Yeah. Well, how do you rank those guys that left the Bengals? Because I know you're talking interior pass rush. I can't help but think that if Cincinnati had the Sheldon Rankins that's playing this year last season, all of a sudden it looks like a brilliant free agency acquisition, gives them that juice they're missing. He seems to be having a great year. I think he would probably be at the top of that list, right?
Yeah, by far. I mean, this defense wouldn't look any different if Lou was still here. He's doing a great job in Indianapolis, but he didn't have the players here, as Al Golden is finding out. And sometimes the coordinators just don't stick around that long. I mean, you either get fired or you get promoted to a head coach, and it just had gotten a little stale. So I don't think there would have been any difference if Lou stuck. And Jermaine Pratt had a great game last week, but I still think his best football is behind him.
Yeah.
Rankins is the one that is a difference maker. And, you kind of saw it. He didn't have a lot of help around him last year. Yeah, he had Trey. But you look at that Houston defensive line, and every single one of those guys are just animals. And they'd be the best defensive lineman. Any one of those would be the best defensive lineman the Bengals would have if you brought one over here. So that Sheldon Rankins an easy number one there, but it does help that he's surrounded by so much other talent.
This one's from Ben. He says, with Jamar Chase suspended for the Patriots game, what can we read from the fact that Jermaine Burton was still a healthy inactive? Have the coaches just lost total faith in him? Are others just that much better than him? What does it mean for Jermaine Burton's future with this team?
Yeah, I mean, he's just not doing what he needs to do. There's consistency there, and it's being on time. It's the way he performs in practice. It's just I think the trust is gone, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them move on from him at the end of the year. I mean, that was it. If he's not active for that game, they have zero trust in that guy. And it's not even about rewarding him. It's you not that you would lose the locker room, but the players see it. And if you activate him for a game like that when he hasn't really been doing everything he needs to be doing as a professional, then guys start kind of side-eyeing and like, what's going on here? Why is this guy getting this shot? And he does have great talent, but he's just not done what he needs to do. And I don't think we're ever going to see him in a Bengals uniform after this.
I mean, it's disappointing to burn a draft pick that high. But let's just forget about the fact they drafted him in the 3rd round for this next question, because this is from Steven. He says, why does it seem like there's a disconnect between drafting offense and defense? On offense, the front office typically goes for proven, productive football players. And on defense, it's more traits and not dudes that can play football. And he said, obviously, there's some outliers like Burton and Amarius Mims. But on the whole, do you think there's a disconnect with how they're drafting the different sides of the ball?
Well, I think on offense, you've got guys that they receivers, running backs, those types that production matters, and it's going to translate. On defense, it's different, especially defensive line. I mean, it's men versus boys when you go from college to pro, and it is about traits. It's like, yeah, you might have whipped up on guys in college, even if you played in the SEC, but you're going to be playing against a different kind of athlete in the pros, and traits matter. Traits really do matter. And it's not worked out for them because Miles Murphy was a traits guy, Shamar Stewart was a traits guy, but it seems like on the defensive side of the ball, it's much more important. The 40 times you see for a while there, every one of their DBs was one of the fastest ones coming out of the combine. Dax and DJ and even Cam had a really good 40 time. And so it's just and I'd have to look at other teams, but I imagine that it is, most of them do kind of lean more into traits on defense as opposed to just proven production, because the production in college just doesn't always translate to NFL.
All right, our next question. This is one that Paul has gotten tired of answering, but I figured he's gone today. He's out. So now it's your chance to get some of these beleaguered questions from Growl Pals. This one's from Michael. He says, thank you guys for all the work you do. Love all the content, the different shows. Everything's great. It's one of the podcasts he's always waiting for, and he appreciates how much we all help make this abysmal season a little less depressing. His question has to do with the hierarchy and structure of the front office and who really is the wizard behind the curtain that we should pay no attention to. Everybody seems to want Duke Tobin fired. I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm trying to understand what impact Duke actually has on roster building. Yes, he clearly plays a role in constructing the roster, but it seems like he has more influence on scouting in the draft, working with the coaches and the rest of the front office on those decisions. But how much say does he really have in free agency? We know Katie negotiates contracts, so is it possible that Duke actually wanted to keep Jesse Bates? Is it possible he wanted to extend Trey Hendrickson earlier, but those things didn't get done because of decisions from above him? Is it possible that he was told that he couldn't sign any major free agents this offseason until Jamar and T were done because they didn't know the financial constraints? I'm just curious, if they were to fire Duke and bring in somebody else, how much of a difference would it realistically make? because it seems like the same people would still be negotiating the contracts and determining who stays and who goes. Would we just be bringing in somebody to hopefully draft better?
That's a long question.
It is.
See, the thing is with Duke, I feel like his voice is getting louder and stronger as he goes. And part of the thing is the reason he's been here so long is he is aligned. He sees things the same as the front office, and they are in so much agreement on all of these things. Not so much the draft part of it, but that plays into it too. But the free agency decisions and who stays and who goes. And I feel like when they make a decision, even though Katie's negotiating the contracts, you have a pretty good idea where those contracts are going to land. And then it's more about haggling guarantees and other little issues within the contract. So I don't. If they fired Duke, we talk about it. He's as close to family as possible because they see things so much alike. So if they were to fire him, they're going to look for somebody else that kind of fits that same vision. And would that be somebody on staff? Would it be someone in the family? I just don't see them going outside. If they were, I don't see them moving on from Duke, period. They're going to get to the end of the year and then hope's going to spring eternal. And they're going to be like, yeah, these last few drafts have been terrible, but this is the year he's going to get it done. He's going to turn it around. I just be really surprised to see them move on from him. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I'd be surprised if they did. And if they did, I don't think it would be a big change. I think they would find someone that aligns, his vision aligns or her vision aligns with the front office, and it just feels like it's going to be more the same. This is the organization has made a lot of changes, but there's some things that I just don't think are ever going to change, and that's one of them. It's just, I know it's frustrating for Bengals fans, and you have to kind of make the decision. Do you want to stay a fan? Because this is how it's going to be. It's going to stay like this, and it's up to you to decide. Are you okay with it? Are you going to ride it out and hope for that magical season to come along every so often as it did in 2021? Or are you going to say, it's never going to change, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to fall into the former. It's fun just for me watching Joe Burrow play football and throw to Jamar Chase. So I'll sign up for that, even if the regime is not changed in the way that a lot of fans might want it to. But hopefully, even if some people decide they can't keep watching the team, they keep listening to our podcast. That's what's most important. Thank you to all the Growl pals that sent questions. You can send yours to the Growler podcast at gmail.com. Thank you, Jay, for answering one of the Duke Tobin questions that I know Paul would not have taken anymore because he's fed up with talking about that. Our last segment is tip on Who Dey Light is typically dad life. We did have an email this week from Travis here that kind of goes into mine. So I'll mention this one. This is from Travis. He says, Growler team, amid another tough Bengals season, wanted to reach out. Thank you guys for all you do. You made the last few years of on-field struggles not just bearable, but truly entertaining. The Growler podcast team is outstanding every week of the year. And again, if you want your emails read, like starting with just over-the-top flattery, like that's a good way to start. So good on you there, Travis. But he says, I'm an active duty Army officer. My family and I lived overseas in Europe for the past 4 years before recently moving back to DC. Your podcast helped me stay connected with Cincinnati and the Bengals. Truly appreciate the work. As a longtime listener of Paul and Jay, I want to share a data point that hasn't been discussed in years. I graduated from OU in 2005 and experienced a partial balcony collapse at 117 Mill Street. As wise 21-year-olds, we stayed on the partially separated balcony and kept drinking. It was the only time the owner responded to a maintenance request. And that was from Travis.
That's
I like
amazing.
hearing that story. Yeah, it's typical OU right there. And that's my dad life this week. We were in Hocking Hills with our kids on Monday, and my wife and I both OU grads. So we took them to Athens for the first time on Tuesday just to show them the campus and everything. And that was fun, but it was such a rainy day. That kind of dampened it a little bit. But, it just surprised me how quickly that college tour goes to places that it shouldn't. It went from like, hey, there's our dorm room, or we lived in an apartment over there. And, we went to, that's Scripps. We had a lot of journalism classes in there. And then like a minute later, I'm pointing out to my kids, you guys see that balcony? I helped somebody throw a couch off of that balcony once. And you see that building over there? I threw up on their stairs when I was a sophomore. So like it went to some places I didn't necessarily expect it to go.
I'd be like, well, you see that fast food place? That used to be a head shop. That's where I bought my first bong.
Did you ever bring your kids and do the college tour at OU?
Oh yeah, of course. They both went there. My daughter went for 1 year and then decided it was too much of a party school for her. She was not a partier. She was getting mad because they were waking her up when she's trying to go to bed at 9 o'clock and then coming back at 3 a.m. and waking her up. So she transferred to Miami after 1 year. But my son went all 4 years, went to OU, graduated. And so that a lot of times that, tours, dad's weekends, mom weekends, parents weekends. I did. My son turned 21 on mom's weekend. So I got to experience a mom's weekend, which was quite eye opening. It was a little bit different than when I was there. And they're older now. My daughter is 29. She's married. She got married in May. My son is 25. He just moved in with his girlfriend. There's these significant others. And that's my dad life is it's this time of year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it now is creating dilemmas where, you don't get to see them every holiday. And you kind of go back to when my wife and I were first dating and married, and you had to make the choices on which family we're going to spend it with this year. And it's rough, but we are going to get to see both of them on Thanksgiving. I think Christmas is not going to work out, but and we are thankful for that we're going to get to see them on Thanksgiving very briefly, because then they're going to go do a Friendsgiving thing that night with my wife and all her friends and all their kids. And I will be coming home to cover the Bengals and Ravens game off of TV. Was going to go to Baltimore. I was really looking forward to the trip, but when they lost that game to the Patriots, it just didn't make sense. It feels like the 1% chance doesn't justify making that long trip and spending all day Thanksgiving in a hotel room by yourself before the game. So thankful for that we will get to see both kids, they're adults, but get to see both of them and their significant others on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's huge. I guess that does become quite the dilemma, right? If they're going to this side of the family on Thanksgiving this year, so next year they'll do the other one. Or I know a lot of people rotate. I mean, maybe you could always just take like a Christmas Eve, be like, this is ours every year. We'll just, punt on Christmas Day and take Christmas Eve. So, you get that for sure, rather than just like the out of town. I don't know. That does get a little bit thornier when the kids are at that age.
Yeah, I brush it off. My wife would love to see them. Obviously, it's going to get even thornier when there's grandkids involved, because then you're going to want to see them every holiday. So hopefully that happens soon, but we'll cross that bridge when it comes to. When it was us, we tried to hit both. We were driving to Columbus and Dayton and going wherever we needed to try to hit both sides of the family. But it's a lot to ask, and I understand, but I know my wife would like to see them every holiday, and it's just not realistic. Now,
with both of your kids at least going to OU for a little bit, how long did it take before they got the real tour from Dad about like what went down there and all the stories? Because I probably went too early, because my kids are 12, 10, and 5, and I'm being like, oh yeah, we threw a couch off the balcony. My kids are like, what? You did what? Why? So I learned that there are some stories I should not regale them with until the appropriate age. Did you tell your kids about that when they were in high school, like some of the partying atmosphere, or did you just kind of let them discover all that on their own?
So my 50th birthday, my wife threw me a roast, and my kids were, my daughter had just graduated high school at that point. My son was still a few years away, and they got quite an education that night. I didn't need to tell any stories. All my friends told the stories. It was one of my favorite nights of my life. Paul actually emceed the event. And it was a blast, and big regret that nobody recorded it. And it's a shame, because my face hurt for days after that from laughing so much. But yeah, my parents and my kids both learned a lot about me that night.
Yeah, that would have been fun to have that recorded. It could have been a special episode of the podcast, or put it for like a donation Patreon tier or something like that. That could have been fun to hear the roast of Jay. But yeah, we did it. We made it through another episode today. It was good. It was a fun episode, fun show without Paul. It just shows us that we don't need Paul here anymore. It's his podcast network, but he is. We've shown that we can hang even without him here.
He's like my kids. He don't want to spend holidays with us.
Exactly. You guys will be back with a walkout, right? On Thursday night at some point.
/ Friday morning.
Friday morning, yeah. Your Black Friday show, which will come out at 1 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah. Well, everybody's in line at Best Buy or whatever people do now. You can pull it up on the streams and pass the time a little bit while you're waiting for the stores to open.
Yeah, and happy Thanksgiving to all the Growl pals, and we will catch you next time.